associated with these keys. I'm gonna explain to you what I'm trying to do. Um, so we have we have a mouse, right? We have a mouse and we have a keyboard. We have two things that we have two tools. And the way I wanted to start off first is I wanted to try to figure out how to implement these keys right here to my playstyle. Now I didn't even think about it, but the fact that I had a mouse with them, I have a mouse with a bunch of keys, just happens, right? That I wanted to figure out how to utilize these keys. You know, um, I wanted to figure out how to like use them to my benefit if I was gonna use hotkeys. So what I'm doing right here is I'm deciding because I'm gonna try to do that, right? Since I don't have like good practice already on hotkeys in general and I'm gonna start learning. I want to learn my own way. And so since I have this mouse, what I decided to do is since I can't reach my my F4s very well. I can't really reach there without like relocating and feeling uncomfortable um, with my hand locations. I feel like sometimes in fast times I might accidentally like relocate my hand to a different key and think I'm pressing, you know, a spellcaster or something, or I get and it just sucks. So what I'm trying to do is keep my hands in around the same posture location, just trying to move my fingers around instead of like move my hands at any point. So because of that, I don't want to use these, or at least I don't want to. I don't want. I these are really hard for me to reach, to feel comfortable to reach up there, and then try to work on the other keys. So instead of this, what I end up doing is I decided that I don't need all of these as map keys. I told myself, well, how many map keys do I really need to work on? Like, how many like map locations do I really need? And I kind of told myself at first, like, maybe give yourself like, four, you know, three for you and then one for your opponent, and that was okay. But then I ended up wanting one of those keys for something else. And so because of that, I decided I was like, you know what, from what I'm coming up to, let's just do three for now. My main base, my natural, and my hidden base, or my main base, natural, and third, or my main base, natural, and opponent's base. Um, so I decided to do that too. I was like, well, I could do that. If I'm doing a two base build, then my third would be at my opponent's front door, or if I'm doing three base builds, then I could do my main, my natural, and my third. And so I thought about that. I was like, okay, well, what can I use? And so I ended up using 11, 10, 11, and 12. And the reason why that was really helpful for me is because it didn't really eat up this mouse didn't eat up any other keys. It only ate up zero, technically, which is this one right here, 0, 10. It ate that one up a little bit, but it only ate it up in vision, just on camera locations, not on anything else. It didn't disturb anything other than just that's the location map key. So 11 and 12 is actually right here. So instead of these guys right here, um, 11 and 12 is right here, right? So since this is 11 and 12, that's not a key that we usually use often in regards to our standard 0 through 9, 1 through 0, or so that made me realize that I could use 0, minus, and positive as camera locations instead of up here. So instead of using my left hand to go to these keys, I'm using my right hand, you know, to move around the map, right? So that's what these keys are for. So, but then I realized as I kept playing, I realized that there's more than just that. There was more than just these camera locations. I noticed that the camera locations based on my mouse key and my left hand were still utilizing visual locations by just having, like, say, the Stargate tab here and just double clicking on my right side mouse with my thumb, double clicking 9 and going towards where my Stargate is at, instead of clicking to my map key that goes to my main base. Because sometimes you want to be in a specific location in your map. When you go back home, you want to be where your Stargate is, or you want to go where your gateway is, where you can warp in, right? An angle where your warp in is right there present from your, for your warp in, your gateways. Or you want to be where your upgrades are, right? Your location. That's where you want to be. I want to be where my upgrades are, so I can upgrade, or whatever. If you don't have that as the tab, so I've learned that because I have this number 9 set as Stargates, number 8 set as robotics, and 7 as gateways, it lets me move around where I want to move around with just my thumb location, knowing the areas. So by knowing every time that 9 is always Stargate and 8 is always Robo and 7 is always Gateway, then whenever I want to go to Stargate location, I always double click 9 and I can go to my Stargates. And that makes it easy for me if I keep it consistent. It always tell me 9 means Stargate. Double click 9. I'm at the Stargate location. So that helped me learn that not just these are camera locations, but you could utilize the structures as camera locations, but camera locations to where your angle is best, more appropriate than just your nexus, right above your nexus. But then I do utilize my left hand as camera locations with the double taps as well, by utilizing my nexuses, which are usually my nexuses are 2, 3, and 4, right? So 2, 3, and 4, I have my main base is usually is 3, and my natural is always 2, and my hidden base, or my third, is always what is it? Is always this one. So this one's my third. Whoopsie. My first one, my main base, my natural, and my third. So because I keep that consistent, whenever I want to go and chrono boost, each nexus, I just double tap 3, chrono boost, hit the nexus. Double tap 2, chrono boost, and chrono boost the 4th one if I want to do that. Or I collect all of them into number 3 if I want to do a slightly different kind of macro of worker productions. But then I won't have the third as a possibility, but the fourth, because they're all nexuses, are utilized for chrono boost. I'll just hit the 4 if I want to chrono boost something, and most likely that since it's all the nexus combined, if I do have chrono boost, I'll use it. So that'll maximize it. And I said, okay, well, if I don't have a location there for the third base, how do I do it? Well, that's where I start strategizing where these keys go, right? So since these keys are optional to where I want them, since I already use these middle keys as main base, back to main base locations, I have these to be strategic. So because they're strategic, I could utilize them sometimes for certain purposes. Like if I have a third base, then I can start using this one you know, like say I'll start using 10 for the um, I'll start using 10 for the third, and I'll just always say, okay, if I want to go to my third, I hit 10 all the time, and I'll keep that consistent in regards to which keys are for what roles, just to keep that organized in your, you know, in your muscle memory. So that way I don't have to worry about going, okay, well, I can't I can't do all the nexuses in number 4 because I need it for um, number 3, so I can locate myself over there. Then I can use this instead. So there's things that I kind of have these map locations solve that I can't solve here on the left side. Like the other thing is, I don't say I want to have a specific area every time I go over to my main base, and I don't want it to be like under the 8 gateway or under the Stargate or any of. I don't want any of these particular visions, and say I want a specific vision, then that's where I use these right here again. I use one of these, like I'll use number 11 for specific location that I want or so, you know. That's in the mid game. In the early game, what I end up doing is, in the early game, what I've learned in the early for the vision, I do my main base here, my natural, and on this one I put it right above the gateway location where the pylon is, where you're gonna make most of your structures. That area where you have it visual envision most of the time when you're building stuff where you like it. Well, that's number 12 for me. Since I'm not going to take a third so early in the game, 12 is actually the vision of where I actually want, consistently where I want my vision, where I build stuff, my pylon, my gateways, my such and such. And so I float from my main to my natural and then back to building something that I'm gonna build anyways without having to drag. So I'm trying to eliminate drag by using that strategy with this early stage of my camera locations. So I have early stage of camera locations, mid stage of camera locations, and late stage of camera locations. Late stage of camera locations would probably usually be about like specific, like, you know, outside bases, or they're more strategic, like his front, or sometimes not his front but uh, his side bases, and you kind of use that to kind of move around or so if you're gonna do like prong attacks or so. But I haven't gotten that far yet. I've only gotten far to like the early stage and the mid stage, which makes sense to me. Like where I have to only do this for a little while until I got these, and once I use these, I don't no longer use the early stage, and then I switch it over to my opponent's map vision and my you could do my third, fourth, and fifth at that point, and you could use these as your main and your natural, utilizing your 2 as your nexus goes to your natural. This one always goes to your main, uh, and your 10 can go to your third all the time, and then you got your fourth and fifth right here that you could switch up. So there's different ways you can utilize the 3, and you don't have to like worry about not having other options, but because you got plenty, you just have to strategize these. If you know that you can like have different roles for it, you have more room, because you don't need all of them all the time. Some things can substitute those. At least that's what I'm learning to do. The other thing is I am slowly. Good morning, Zoom McGee, Zorn McGee. Hey, Nina. How's it going, Nina? I am slowly putting these right here as my upgrade. So this is my forge right here. This is my cybernetics core, and this is, what did I say this one was? Forge cyb. What did I put right there? I have it right here. Uh, Forge cyb. It's number. Oh, that's my Nexus. That's why. Yeah, that's my next. So Forge, and Cybernetics Core are the main ones, but the Cybernetics Core, I'm contemplating and combining the Cybernetics Core and the rest of the tech, everything but the Forge, because the Forge has priority over the Cyb if you have them all collectively. So I wanted to make sure that if I'm going air, I have a habit of hitting 5 for upgrade, and if I'm going ground, I have a habit of hitting 6 for ground upgrades. And then that can kind of keep a consistency for me of making sure which upgrades I'm going for by clicking left or right of my thumb, 5 or 6. 4 is my chrono boost. That's what it is. So since all of them are usually all my nexuses I collect on 4, I use that as my chrono boost. So anything I need to chrono boost is right there, which means if I click 5 and I can quickly click 4 chrono boost and then chrono boost the tech that's next to it. That's why I put 4, 5, 6 right where they're at. And of course Gateway, Robo, and Stargate as 7, 8, 9. And that kind of helps me manage my thumb organization. I want to make sure my thumb is knowing where to go and why it's going over there. And it allows me to use the left hand to complement my right hand move. So if I hit Gateway, if I hit Stargate with my right, all I have to do is hit V with my left, and that's hitting Void Raids. Or if I hit Robo with 8, all I have to do with my left is hit the hotkey for the Robo. So it gives me a little bit of room. The other thing I do is I use number 10 in the late game stage, or mid game stage is what I say. For me, my mid game stage, I use number 10 for my what do you call it? I use number 10 for my Prism, because it's better for me to like click that button with my thumb so I know where my Prism is as a hotkey. It allows me to control it better for me. So I use 0, and the reason why it's 0, for me 0 is actually this button right here. This is 0. So instead of 0 being because that's my hotkey, that's my camera key, because it's my camera key, I use 0 as this. And so because that's 0, I use 0 as my Prism, like move around. So that kind of helps me around right there. So that's what I use for moving and structures. At least that's the concept I'm trying to go for my mouse. Yeah, Widow Mine button. It has to be the one that won't wear out. Is the Cannon Rush button? Are you setting up ability spam hotkeys? Setting up ability spam hotkeys? What do you mean ability spam hotkeys? I'm setting up, like when it comes to my keyboard, the keyboard, I arranged it where I felt like I can control it pretty good. Like the way I have the keyboard is from 7 to negative and plus, because that's 10, 11, 12. That's 10 right here. And then that's 11. And then that one right there, that's 12 on my mouse. You know how I have my mouse where it's 10, 11, 12? Well, that's pretty much it. That's 0, minus, and plus. So 0, minus, and plus, that's all mouse. So that gives me more room than just thinking it's up to 0 and that's it. So because I use 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 with my thumb, that allows me to not have to utilize all these buttons along with the left buttons with my left hand. So instead of my left hand taking all of that role, I'm sharing most of that role to the mouse. So that's my right hand role now. is to try to utilize these as best as I can. While since most of them are vision locations and all that, I feel like all of that is just movement mechanics, um, motion mechanics. So that's kind of how I feel. So I go, okay, well that makes sense. So that's I use these if I double tap these locations. They're for movements. I move my mouse. Hotkey locations. So majority of it, other than productions as a benefit, I can still produce out of these. Most of it's really also just visual location directions. So I felt like that was good. I was like, okay, I can complement my right to just do what it usually is supposed to do, be at the place where it needs to be. Put me in the place where I need to be. That's the so it made sense to me. So it gave me way, like I said, it gave me more wiggle room for my left hand. And so since we're here on this part, um, I wanted to make it very simple for me. One of the things I did is the purple right here are my spellcasters. Usually like the spellcasters, these are it. These are like my blink, I used, my shades. I use ST. Chrono, my oracles E and C because that's pretty comfortable with these, and there's a lot of these that are very consistent. So I made sure that these were like always anything that had to do with the spellcast. It had to be one of these 6 keys. If it was a spellcaster, it had a spellcast on the top, which kind of in my head it allowed me to remember that spellcasts are for my fingers above me or below me based on the unit. And then I made sure that my memory would tell me that in the middle is always upgrades. So, if you want to upgrade, the keys are always in the center. So, center are upgrades, top and bottoms are spellcasts. That's how I kind of wanted to memorize it and make it comfortable for myself to understand it in a very simple way to add upgrades when I want to, and when I want to do certain spellcasts, where are those keys? Um, because the reason I did that is because if I'm playing StarCraft for a long time, a lot of hours, one thing I want to make sure is that my hand doesn't get in a very uncomfortable location constantly, and then I wear it out or I start creating pains because I'm putting myself in stress. I'm putting my hand in a stressful angle, or so or just movements, patterns are just not comfortable, and it just really puts a wear and tear on you. So all of this was in regards to keeping in mind of hand motion and comfortability for long-term use. Um, I can't reach too far, and I don't want to stress my hand to stretch too far and be all over the place. So that's why I made all this the way it is here. Same thing with like F2 and F1. So what I did with F2 and F1, my F2 is now cap locks. So I have F2 as my cap locks. My F1 is utilized by my space and my control. So by clicking space and control, I can get all my workers that are not mining, that I don't know about, um, and start mining them somewhere. And so by doing this, every time I take an expo, every time I get a new nexus, I just get in a habit of clicking control space, right click on the mineral as a habit. And that will constantly allow me to remember that the worker should always be mining somewhere, and there's no like, a bunch just hanging out, after minerals are depleted. So it's a habit that I kind of like to want to learn as combos. Like, okay, Nexus, every time I make Nexus, boom, boom. Or every time, certain periods of time, I hit that control space and then right click. Whatever it is, I don't know my cues yet. But this is one where I want to learn my cues so I can stay consistent if I don't keep track on some probes or some SAVs in this case. So that's where my F1 is, and my F2 cap locks because I don't use it anyway, so I might as well just put it there. And my worker patrol, I hate moving my hand to the right and hitting Shift P. I really feel uncomfortable moving my hand to hit Shift P. I have to do it all the time, but I don't like it. So I decided to put it as Shift Tab. So my tab is now my patrol for my probe. So now instead of always doing like the shift through cycles, because I don't want to go to patrol, I could just always just use Shift Tab, left click, and I can create a patrol without having to click so many locations because I don't want to go Shift P. You know what I mean? So that's allowing me to to feel a little more at ease from having to like go way down there or having to do too many shifts until I come back and do more shifts and come back. And so it keeps the repetitiveness for me away. um, so that's how that works for me. The shift and control, the reason why I say I'm flipping it is because every time I use the regular shift, like say if I have gateways on my on my hotkey on like say 4, eh, and I want to replace that with something else, usually when I put shift and then the key, it adds it with it. So I'm like, I don't want the gateways with my army group, and then and that's because I don't want to hit the control too often because it's so far down for me. It's very awkward. Not awkward, but it's like it's not as comfortable as shift. So I decided that that was more important to me than to add, and so because of that, I switched over the role to control and to shift so that I could just hit shift army and then the hotkey and it'll replace it every time. It'll just replace it. Yeah, I won't have to worry about it's adding it and oh no, now I got to take that off and then all that good stuff. So now the only time I use control usually is when I collect it with all my workers that are just idled. um that's pretty much it on this part. The only other thing that I did think about is the prism, you know? Um, the prism, I figured out that you were able to toggle two together, or not toggle, but you're able to like somehow, you're allowed to use T and T for both warping and unwarping. So I used that, and then I did that with the gateways. So it allowed me to use G for warp gate research, and then G for gateway, and then G for warping back into, warp gate. Because I want to use warp gate and I want to use gateway sometimes strategically for my own site to kind of like play like a Terran sometimes for micro purposes. That's just how I like to do it. So I like to change up. So I just hit G all the time, and it'll replace it, and it'll go right back into gateways. So that was pretty cool. I can't do that with observers. I don't know why it doesn't let me do that with observers. If it lets me do that with prisms, but I really wanted to do the observers where they transform with just one hotkey. Yeah, they don't let me for some reason. So I have to use, Y and T to switch over on the observers. But yeah, so I did that. So that's some of the main changes. The upgrade locations. What I did with the upgrades regarding, like, say if I click on a fleet beacon, the way I chose my hotkeys on the upgrades were basically whatever unit I make, and the hotkey for that is the unit of the upgrade. So if I want to get the Phoenix speed, I just click X because that's the button I use to make a Phoenix. And if I want to make Void Raid speed, I just hit V because that's the button I use to make a Void Raid. And if I want the Tempest range, then I just hit T because that's what I hit when I make the Tempest. So I kind of use that basic, simple concept of, hey, I want Phoenix speed. We'll hit the Phoenix key, try to make it very simple on that part. So anything that had to do with upgrades and stuff, like that had to be a unit particularly. Like say the robotics, same thing. If I wanted to get the range of a Colossus, the Colossus range, I hit C because that's what I do to make a Colossus. For me, my hotkeys are S for Prism and A for Observer. So same thing. If I want to get the Observer speed, A, and then if I want to get the Prism speed, S. So I kept it very simple. You know, on all of that, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And that's how we got. That's how I got to this pretty much at the end of the day. You know, and now we just gotta work on it and see what we need to finesse, or or which ones are more viable most times than not. But I first want to create a really good foundation habit of knowing that all of these keys have a certain location. These are the locations. Um, so yeah, that's my goal next, because there's a lot of memorize, and I do want to make sure I don't not use them. I want to make sure that I use them constantly. If and eventually that'll allow me to be faster as a player. That's my overall goal. Um, it's not technically gonna change my playstyle overall. It's just gonna help me do what I want to do more, if that makes sense. But in the beginning, I do want to play very dull and standard just to get all of the keys and all of the hotkeys memorized. So in the beginning, I do want to kind of like have like a standard practice where I just build gateways and cybernetics cores and all that, just to put them on keybinds, just so I can use them, just so I can get that muscle memory. So I'll be doing a lot of team games and a lot of you know practice that way when I do that. So I'll be doing team games while I practice that. Um, so yeah, yep, that's where we're at right now. So we'll see. How's everybody? Sorry, thanks for. I had to go through all of that all at once. Questions? Good morning. It's been a while since I tuned in. Hey, Zorn McGee. It's all good. I'm just starting to get back into the game, but with more to my next goals. You know, my viewers convinced me to start working on my hotkeys now. Might as well. So I said, okay, fuck it. I guess so. Let's do it. We've waited, long enough. We've worked on strategies. Let's just kind of like put the other piece together. You have to have a Widowmine, but I have. This is all Protoss. I just want you to know. I haven't done one for Terran and Zerg. I'm not that well, situated with Terran and Zerg yet. So those are gonna give me. Those are gonna take me a little bit of time. I wanted to start with something I'm comfortable with first, so I can at least get a better habit than just getting like lost already because I don't know Terran Zerg and I'm doing a lot of changes and this. And Protoss, I know Protoss. I know how I play, and I know how the race is. So because I know how I play, I know what I think I want personally. I don't choose all this because I'm just questioning myself constantly and just going, okay, well, let's just do this. It's more like this feels right to me. Feels right to me personally. So, why do you use this hat? It just there's many reasons why I use this hat. One thing, it just brings out my eyes. The other thing, it teleports me whenever I want. It has special power abilities. It represents creativity, I guess, in different layers. It represents that I'm a Protoss player at heart. It represents that I don't take everything serious. But it also represents that I really love StarCraft. I don't know. There's several. What up, Jiggity? It just feels right. Grid pattern for Terran. I don't know. I don't have anything yet from Terran and Zerg. I have to figure that one out. I'm gonna try to like figure it out maybe sometime next week so I can start using them. But I don't want to like get in a bad habit if I'm gonna learn them. Since I'm already getting habits of using these keys. So we're going to be doing a little bit of Protoss till I can get a little hotkey pattern from Terran that I'm going to try to study up. And I'm going to try to use the same concept. I've already invented my own build, so I'm not going to reinvent another whole different build. I'm going to use the same, things that I told myself to do in the other races. So it shouldn't be too hard to like put things together, but I just got to see there are a couple differences between Zerg, Terran, and Protoss that I have to kind of see. You know. Gotta get those minerals. No, but right now Terran and Zerg is just standard. I click a lot with my mouse, and then I just use just basics. Sometimes like maybe 20% of the hotkeys that are like to build this and that. Most of the time I click. Like 70% of my game is clicking with the mouse. Click, 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 click. So now I'm learning how to use my left hand actually, and I'm actually giving rolls to my right. So it's a lot harder for me right now. I'm on uncomfortable territory, but I like uncomfortable territory because it means that I'm where I want to be, and I want to work on what I need to work on. It might not be good right now, but later on, trust me, the cries of salt are going to be coming to us. Gotta get the inner minerals. I'm gonna get a beer. It's Friday. Tomorrow, guys, we're gonna do Twitch sings. So for those who want to see me embarrassed and singing some songs, that's gonna be tomorrow. I think it's gonna be late night. I'll put a tweet out, but it's gonna be kind of like late night. So just FYI. Gotta get those. How many army groups would you have maxed? I mean, how many do you think is a good to have? That one's a good question. I'm still testing that one. I don't know. I don't know how many camera groups are really optimal. This is for me, for one, all this is new, right? I don't use them, and I'm doing the best that I can trying to figure out how I can apply and save some hotkeys for camera groups, for like army groups. So I made sure I saved two. I made sure that I had two that were going to be comfortable for me, and that was going to be 1 and 0. The reason why 1 is so for army groups, what I thought about in army groups is you have, let's see. So when it comes to army groups, you have, I have 1 and I have 0, right? I have 1 and 0. Why is 0 way out here? Well, because for me, 0 is actually this one right here. So I made 0 as the, what is it, Matilda? And then so that means that because 0 is my camera location, I don't need 0 in the place of a hotkey. So because of that, I only use it as a camera location, and I use 0 now in place of this. So now this became my 0, and now I use these two as my spellcasters and my army group, really close to me, right to my left side. And the other thing is, because this one is still 0 in some reason, for I don't know why, but because it's still 0, I'm still able to use it with my mouse over here. You know, I could still use it. I'm still able to use this button and click 0 and get my prism, you know, and click my prism, even though this 0 is actually also this key, because it's a camera location, not taking place of any other action other than location, visual location. And because it's not a technically a visual location that I'm looking for here, it only turns into an action. And the only way that I can actually get a visual to the action is if I actually put it as a hotkey, which is here, and physically double click this, and then I'll get there. If not, I'll just have to just control it by clicking 0, or I can control it by clicking. I can control it by clicking this with my left hand. So if I click this, I can go over there to my prism. If I don't want to go to my prism, but I want to control it easily, I use the 0. You get me? So I utilize my right hand to move around my prism, my observer, whatever key thing I want that I want to like make sure that I baby. So my right hand babies the tech, the army that I want, my void raids, or whatever I feel at this game in the game that is important to me. But I don't know how many other groups I would need. I don't know if I need, you know, I don't know if I need 2 army groups and 1 spellcaster group. I don't know if I need, I'm not sure yet. For some, okay, so I do have F2, right? So my F2 right here, that actually for me is somewhat of an army group. It's like a ghetto army group for me. So I double tap my my F2, right? And it usually takes me to the army. So then after that, then I'll just army group it, and then I'll relocate whatever tech I need to the other one if I have to. But if I don't have an army group, I usually click F2, get my army selected to the army group, and then work from there. But it's also like really good for me to like locate, like where's my army? Double click cap lock if I don't have an army group. Yeah, so that happens. That's like the ghetto side of my mechanics that I'm kind of like have shortcuts for when I don't have something, and then I grow it into the hotkeys. Because yeah, I don't want to like start. I want to try find the easiest way to get there when I don't have an army group. I'm like, shit, where's my army group? So I do use F2 for 2 things: so army location, and for, just full on attack. So yeah, that was. So that's where that's where we're at. How many you think is good? Yeah, so I don't know that answer yet. A probe group? Well, in the okay. I didn't explain that as well. But good question. So, I do have a probe group. I do have a probe group. So for the so in the beginning of the game, you really don't have very much, right? You really don't have all this. You don't have all this in the beginning of the game. And you kind of start growing this, right? So in the beginning, all you have is basically you have your nexus, and that's it. So, and then a gateway eventually, and then a cybernetics core, right? So first a gateway, then first a nexus, then a gateway, then a cybernetics core. So I do have a probe, and the probe is on this key. It's on the 1. So in the beginning of the game, my probe is 1 until I have an army group, and then by the time I have an army group, it becomes my army group. But this is pretty much my probe, my scouting probe, or it's my production probe to just make I kind of want to get in a habit sometimes to just hit one and then whatever production and just already have a probe in mind. I already want to have like a probe to just have to not go and grab a probe. I just click the button and just build something, go here, do this, do that, do that. I want to have that in the beginning of the game and then replace it after what 2 bases or something. And from there, I'll just like grab it whenever I need to, if I need to. But it's not the biggest thing. But I do have a probe role, and that's number 1 for a little while, which makes sense because that's going to be my army group, and you don't need the probe for too long. You just need it for the early game. So that's the switch right here for that one. It's worker first, then army group. Same thing with this one. This one right here is my void raids. In most cases, I end up getting this as my void raids. This as my, I switch it up sometimes. Because this one I put like an army group, and then I think I do, like I kind of mess with these two around, and that's the thing about it. I still don't have like a constant with the army groups and all that. I haven't gotten into that yet, like fully. I just know that I have leeway to these two, and so far that's what I'm gonna work on until I feel like I need more. But yeah, I believe that you need a probe location for a hotkey, so that's it. Good question. It's a long process to make it perfect. Ain't that the truth? That's why you have to do it where it feels right for you. I don't think there's like a real perfect way of doing it. I think you have to just do what you feel comfortable. What you feel like, how it works. Because if it makes you feel comfortable and you're gonna do it more. If you think it's perfect but you don't end up doing it, well then it ain't actually perfect to you. It might be perfect, but it might not be suitable to you. So you have to do things that make it good for you. I'm sure some of these things you might like that I do, and then some things you might not never do, and you're like, nah, I don't think about that. But I do like your choice of here when you do. That's a good one, or this may actually make me think about that, and I could do something that I want to do. I'll put that key in this, particular, whatever your specialty is, and whatever you use most. That's where you start going. So yeah, so that's where we got all these things. If you're using the numbers in a row, I mean, are you using the number pad instead of the numbers at the top? Because won't it be awkward to have spellcasters so far from army groups? Wait, are you using the number instead of the over to? No. That's the thing. So with spellcasters, let me see. I'm kind of trying to explain myself on that one. So remember I said that the spellcasters are right here, right? They're technically here. They're placed here. The 0 is not far. The 0 is replaced with that little, that little key. So now my spellcasters and void raids are here, or my void raids and gateways are here. Void raids and stalkers are here. These two areas are my left hand. So I use my left hand to micro as well. But if I need to, like, say I need to grab my prism and I need to move them or something, I don't always have to hit one to do it. I just hit my thumb and right click where I want them. So it's one of those things where I have two things that I could choose to do based on the scenario, based on, what kind of like spell casting am I doing? Am I doing prism run bys and two hit attacks? Or am I doing micro where I'm using one spellcaster storm and this one moving stalkers, or this one pulling, you know what I mean? There's different ways of doing your micro and different types of units to do certain things. So when it's a prism in general, which is why I put a prism just so you guys can get an idea of what I'm trying to explain. When it's a prism, I use 0 because I click this button to control it to move around, and then I use this button to use the spellcasters if I need to do spellcasters. So it's more for movement. It's more for movement. Like I said, this is more of a movement location. The mouse rolls are usually a lot more movement rolls, more than in movement visuals. Um, it just happens to have production benefits by clicking a button and then being able to click on the key V for void raids or something. But yeah, no, my left hand uses one and those two keys to micro. So you're not really replacing one or the other. You're using both for whichever situation you feel is best for the for the type of build or situation in the game, or specific play style. Um, so yeah, that's why it just happens to look far because of the way that these things are. But yeah, technically this is over here. So, and that's where we're at. But good question though, you know. Um, because I sure thought about a lot of stuff for me to feel like I am comfortable to try to like move forward with this setup. Um, yeah, the only one I don't like too much is the cap locks, but I got no other choice, you know. But that's the only one I don't like as F2. But it is what it is. It's fine. I'm gonna be chatting sometimes. Like, oops, sorry, forgot. I used the F2.